Doctor. The Garden Doctor.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Garden Doctor Show. Mrs. Garden Doctor over here. We are overwhelmed by the response to, first, when I was in the hospital, the amount of cards and letters and so forth.
Incredible.
I really didn't know that there was that many people that knew that I was in the hospital to begin with, because I'm not on Facebook. I don't do that. I mean, I guess I am on Facebook.
A little, you do
but
some.
only to keep track of my grandchildren. And you know,
Yes.
every once in a while I'll post something, and then I'll say, listen, don't respond back because I just want to talk one way.
You see, that's what I accuse him of. I said, you just want to talk, you don't want to listen. So he posts and then he never answers any texts or anything because he just wants you to listen to him and he doesn't want to listen. So
It's kind of like this show, because
like
you know,
at
I
home.
can talk to you guys and I can just talk forever, and if I don't want to listen, I just turn you off and say, I can't hear you.
No.
So, but anyway, no, we never do that.
No.
But also, for my birthday here a while back, the calls and the letters and the cards and the stopping on the street, how did so many people know that I have a birthday? And
Right. How old are you?
what am I, 66?
66 now, yes.
66 years old, and that was, you know, it's nice to be stopped and say happy birthday. I mean, it was just
Very
fun.
nice.
But what was so cute was this little kid come up, and a little small, and she said happy birthday, and then she took off running. And I don't even know who she belonged to. I'm sure
cute.
somebody sent
Probably
her.
put her up to it.
Somebody sent her, but I
That's
don't know the
nice.
kid, and I never saw him again, and I didn't see her with the mother or father or whatever. And
That's cool.
That was just real nice.
I like that.
And then when after the surgery, I had 2 or 3 people just stop me at the store, you know, and
And in case you didn't know, he had triple bypass open heart surgery in February. That's the surgery he's referring to, in case you were not aware. But he is recovering very well. He's doing his cardiac rehab 3 times a week, and he's doing way too much outdoors in this heat that I don't approve of, and I don't think they would
that's one of our
either.
major subjects is the heat.
Yes.
Because the heat is the heat is the heat, and it's going to keep on coming.
And it's not just hot, it can be dangerous.
It can be extremely dangerous, not just for you, but in particular for your pets, because you have the option. You can put some water on your head, you can go
Right.
inside, you can get in the shade, but a lot of times the pets are only allowed to do what we allow them to do.
Especially if they're confined in a pen or something. All they can do is
Or on a
seek
chain
shade.
or in a vehicle.
They pant, they seek shade, and that's about it, or lay in cool ground. Never leave a pet in a car, even with the windows rolled down. It's just not a good idea for a child, a pet, for anything, for anybody.
I want to tell you that in one of our upcoming shows, we're going to do probably the entire show on the value of one tree, on how much one tree does. And the fact is that one tree can save a life.
Absolutely.
It can actually save your life or the life of a child or in particular the life of a pet. I was not aware, and I've been doing some pretty extensive research on this. I was not aware of all of the different universities that had done tests on how much carbon monoxide and how much carbon itself was absorbed and exchanged, and how much
And
oxygen
simply
released.
cooling with shade alone.
But the cooling was what just floored me, and it's a difference of 37 degrees.
Wow.
That just was 37-degree difference between what the blacktop or the concrete was without shade and then what it is with shade. Holy moly, that's why it's so vitally important to have trees in urban areas.
And as you know, I grew up in Florida my whole life, and it's hot down there. And I'm so used to, you have the older people, transplants down there, the snowbirds we call them, who would say, "Oi, it's so humid." And that is absolutely the truth. It's not just the heat, it is the humidity, because when it's humid, you cannot sweat as much, and you can't cool yourself as much. So that is a very important figure, not just the temperature, but the feels like temperature, because that takes into account the humidity. Now, one thing I was not aware of is that feels like temperature is in shade. Now, if you are working outdoors, the temperature, you can add 15 degrees to that feels like temperature when you are working in the direct sunlight. So shade, providing shade for either yourself, if you're an employer, your workers. And I did a lot of research on this, and there are OSHA standards and rules about how much water they have to provide to you, and shade areas and exposure to the heat. And there's a big deal about acclimation. And for instance, let's say you just this year decided you're going to start mowing your own lawn. Well, you're not used to being out there mowing the lawn. And that being not acclimated, not used to it, can be twice as dangerous to you because you are more susceptible to the effects of heat-related illness.
That is very, very true. And we're from New Hampshire. New Hampshire is home to us now. Well, it's always been home to me. And
my family's been there forever. I was raised in Florida, but then the family's up there, so.
And my aunt and all my family were acclimated to that environment. And when she came out here to visit, it was, we set records that year. I don't remember the year, 2007 or so, somewhere around in there.
Know.
7 or 8. But it was 105, and she literally could not breathe outside. But back up at home, the temperature is getting hotter up there.
It is. The summers are becoming hotter and more humid in New Hampshire.
And she's in her
change.
80s.
Yes.
And during her entire life, she never had an air conditioner. We never had air conditioning. As a matter of fact, you'd have to put a blanket on at night. And you still have to.
You still do. It
to
gets
some
in
extent.
the 50s, 60s at night in the summer.
But the acclimation of the people was zero when it came to oppressive heat. And so when the temperature, this global warming, started to catch up with New England, and about 4 years ago, they had temperatures that went into the high 90s and I think even hit 100, there were people that died.
Yes.
And that was not a small number. It was up in the 30s.
Simply because of the
35,
heat.
40 people.
And
just
the elderly.
from the heat in one day.
Now, anybody who is 65 or older, and that includes you, young man, 65 or older are even more susceptible to heat-related illness, and part of that is age. Diseases such as heart disease or circulation problems makes it harder to cool yourself.
All of the above I have.
And medications as well.
All of the
and
above
that's why
I have.
I harp on you constantly about the heat and drinking.
And it really wears on me now. I used to be out in 100, 105 degrees, and a fellow by the name of Richard Brown and I did a lot of landscape in the hundreds, right against blacktop, with right against brick buildings and so forth. And we would start to feel ourselves get woozy, and we would just hose each other down.
Yes.
And we put sheets over our shoulders that were over our heads and shoulders that were wet down, and pin them around our necks, so we looked like ghosts running around.
And I used to always provide you, when you were working outside doing landscaping, towels, kitchen-sized towels in the cooler with ice that you can, put around your neck and cool yourself. You have to be able to cool yourself.
There are new cooling neckerchiefs,
neck wraps and
neck deals,
hats.
hoods, hats.
He now has a fishing hat that has a curtain all the way around to keep the sun off of his neck.
Which you'll see in the outtake. And I do wear this thing because it does keep you cooler. But you need to look into some of this stuff if you work outside. There's actually a cooling vest. And you put it in the ice water, and you really need to buy, if you've got friends of yours, relatives that work outside, you need to provide this for them because things are hotter than they ever were.
And right now,
this is not normal.
It is so hot, the birds have to use pot holders to pull the worms out of the ground. I mean, it's really hot. Right?
Bad joke. Yeah, that's a good one. Say that again. Say that again.
It is so hot, the birds have to use pot holders to pull the worms out of the ground.
That's fantastic.
It's so hot that trees are whistling for the dogs.
Oh my God.
It really is. It's wicked hot out there.
She has not told me these jokes in advance.
It's a good thing, I don't know what reaction.
Do you have any more? Give me another one.
It is so hot. Dick Cheney waterboarded himself. I mean, that's crazy.
What?
Dick Cheney, waterboarded himself. It's so hot. It's so hot.
Dick called me here a couple weeks ago. So
did he?
Yeah.
Well, it is so hot that when you buy a dozen eggs, by the time you get home, you have chickens. You have baby chicks. It's so hot. When you get home after buying bread, it is so hot. Your bread has been toasted.
Amazing.
Isn't that something?
Amazing.
I mean, that really is hot. But
I believe that's hot.
That's hot.
And we should take a bit of advice from the people who live in the desert and who have lived there for eons and cover ourselves up.
Yes.
You see me around town, I'm always wearing a long sleeve shirt.
Yes,
now,
he
part
does.
of that is because the medicines that I take, and just about every
Sun
medicine
exposure,
you take says sun exposure. And let me tell you, this stuff
Excuse
makes
me.
you very susceptible to sunburn and so forth. You have to be extremely careful about that.
Now,
But-
especially the hottest part of the day is between 10 a.m. and 4 p.m. That is when the UV rays are at their hottest as well. And I also have some information about the best times of day to actually do yard work if you are going to be working outside and how you should be
this is the Garden Doctor
hydrating.
Show, so relate it to gardening and to landscaping. This is part of this whole thing because everything that we do, everything in the gardening business, is outside.
It is.
You're not going to do very much inside. So we thought it was very important to bring you a show about heat. And my wife did a lot of research, and I'm going to turn it back over to you again. But I just wanted you to know that if this sounds like we're deviating from our topic or from our subject, we're not. You have to stay safe and stay alive in order to be able to do your gardening. So take it away, dear.
Well, I had asked you earlier when I was doing this research if he had an opinion on when is the best time to mow your lawn when it's hot outside. Well, come to find out that in the evening, not in the dark necessarily, or you could if you wanted to, in the evening is the best time to cut your grass. And of course, you don't want to scalp it. You want to cut it a little high. It shades the roots. But that gives this newly cut grass all evening and all night, those 8, 10, 12 hours to actually recover from the shock of being cut.
And please do not cut your lawn short, because when it's hot, you're compounding the problem over and over again.
Yes.
Mow that lawn taller, tallest, as tall as your lawnmower will go. Now you might say, oh, it looks shabby, it looks terrible. I mow my lawn at 3.5 inches, and my weeds, I don't even put a weed control on my lawn, and I have very, very few weeds. It shades itself and chokes out the broadleaf weeds naturally without any additions. And I fertilize very infrequently because the lawn fertilizes itself, shades itself, and it's a much healthier lawn with better root structure.
Now, I know it's cooler in the morning, and people think, oh, well, first thing in the morning would probably be the best time to mow your grass, and temperature-wise, it probably would be, except that the grass tends to be dewy and wet, and that not only sticks to your lawnmower and makes a huge mess underneath, but if there is any disease, it allows it to stay wet in the blades of grass and be spread around to other parts of the lawn. So that's why evening, according to my research, and of course everything on the internet is true, we know that, but I did check a lot of things out. In the evening really is the best time
And let's
to mow.
spend a moment on that disease, because moisture is the developer of the disease. It spreads it, it gives it more strength, more energy, but you also have fresh cut grass that's sticking now up under the lawnmower. So you want to dislodge that as often as you can, get that excess of grass out from underneath there, and disinfect your lawnmower.
And that just takes a mild bleach solution.
Very mild.
You know,
You don't need to do damage to yourself.
Right.
You don't need to bleach your clothing. If you can get up under there with a spray bottle, spray it on there and let it dry. You have just disinfected your lawnmower, and you will do it a tremendous service for both your lawnmower by getting all of that crap out from underneath there and putting some disinfectant under there, and especially your lawn. And it should be done at least once a week, which is difficult for you to do, but it really should be, so that if there is a disease out there, you're not spreading it and feeding it.
Yes.
And you never know when that's going to happen.
Now, we've made an outtake about disease and how to prevent disease on your tomato plants as well. We'll be showing that here shortly.
Prevention is
yes,
the best.
It is. Now, another thing that was recommended is if if you know that mowing your lawn takes normally about an hour, for every chore that you're going to do outside in the heat, double that time. Figure it's going to take you 2 hours in the heat to do that job. And you have to hydrate aggressively. And actually, OSHA, for employers...
Aggressive hydration.
Aggressively, yes.
You know, would that be like if the person won't drink, you stick a hose in their mouth and turn it on?
I have been tempted to do that to you, yes. And they actually recommend...
She does aggressive hydration. I'm telling you, she really does.
I try. I don't know if I drink enough myself, but I aggressively try to hydrate him. But they actually recommend an 8-ounce cup of water, cool water, of course, an 8-ounce cup of water every 15 minutes.
Can you imagine that?
Yes, and
Seriously.
to take frequent breaks when you go.
Nobody is going to do that.
Well, this is how you protect yourself.
It really is recommended, and you're replacing, because I have sweat. I mean, my shoes would be full of water.
Well, this is what OSHA says employers have to do if they have employees working outside.
I have issues with OSHA.
Well, everybody does, but where else do you go to for guidelines that have been
That's
studied?
right. You know, I do have issues with OSHA. However, that's where things get done, and that's where we come up with rules and guidelines.
To protect employees.
And they're all for a reason. They do research before they come up with
If you're working
this
out
stuff.
in an open field, for instance, being in the sun, as I stated, can add 15 degrees to the temperature that you're just dealing with. And they need to provide little shade houses or what have you to where breaks can be taken in the shade, 5 minutes, every 15 minutes when you hydrate. And that's really the way to protect yourself, because heat-related illness is deadly. It is deadly.
Back in the 80s, when I had the nursery landscape company, I had a mister that I put on the side of my truck, and I would turn the mister on and let the guys walk back and forth through it. It just was a mister. And I don't know where I got it, but I was at a convention somewhere, and they said, you should provide this mister for your, and it just hooked on my truck and folded out, and it was an arch like that, and it just provided mist.
I had this idea some 30 years ago.
I know.
Going to the racetrack down in Florida to watch the drag races, which I love.
This
drag
would have
racing.
made us $1 million.
I'm telling you, I took this squirt bottle and I kept it in my cooler, and when I would get hot, I would take it out and mist myself with the spray bottle, and people all around me would say, "Oh, spray me, that feels so good." I even had this idea. I was going to call it Mrs. Mister, and I was going to have a big cooler full of spray bottles for sale, and you could
In
get
the
them
ice water,
in the
and
ice water, and you could refill them all day long for free.
Refill for free.
Now, let me tell you, our son and daughter-in-law and kids went to Disney World here recently, and they sell little bottles of cold water with a little fan on it to blow the water on you, $20 a piece.
No refills.
I don't know if they refill them or not, but I'm telling you,
they probably charge you $1 for a refill.
Everybody likes to get misted when it's hot.
Yeah, $20.
Really?
Yeah, we would have been millionaires. That's all there is to it.
I'm telling you.
Yep.
All right. So, what do you want to do next?
Well, we got to do your whisper show.
Let's talk about that.
Or do you want to do the outtake, or what do you want to do?
You want to do the outtake first? We were talking about disease on our tomato plants,
Yep.
or on your lawn. This is about disease on your tomato plants, so let's run our outtake.
Well, I want to see if the offices, if the people in the command booth are paying attention.
Well, if they want to.
If you would please key up the outtake back in there, we'll take a break. Hello, folks. Welcome to the backyard of Mr. and Mrs. Garden Doctor. You've been here many, many, many times. Hopefully you came out and saw our show that we had last weekend, Saturday. We had a really nice crowd, and I appreciate all the well-wishers and the happy birthdays. I didn't realize that many people knew that I had a birthday all over town, stopping me here and there. We're going to work on tomatoes today. Tomatoes, tomatoes, tomatoes. Everybody at least grows a tomato. We have not been diligent in our pruning. I could say that it's because we wanted to do a show, but that would be a lie. What my wife just showed you there was some of her beautiful hardy, now that's the key word, hardy hibiscus in pink, and in red. We have 3 or 4 different colors that are not in bloom yet. And then the blossom of her moonflower, which is fading fast. The minute you prune it, it starts to fade. Now here you see we have a giant tomato plant starting to outgrow its cage. And it's time now to give this tomato plant some fertilizer, and to fertilize it continuously every week during the entire length of its life. And the reason that we start now is because the fruit is beginning to set. I'm going to show you that a little bit more clearly here, but you can see right here the fruit is starting to set, and we're having some issues. I'm going to pull this tomato out of here, and I'm going to show you that we have some cracking on the bottom of the tomato, and we have some splitting in here, and some of this is due to nitrogen. My wife put a higher nitrogen fertilizer on than she should have early, and this causes the tomato to grow a little bit too rapidly, and you get some of this. You also get blossom end rot, which is from a lack of calcium, and so you just get some blossom end rot in the bottle at the solution, and all it is calcium, liquid calcium. You can mix it up yourself and put it on your tomato plant, and you put it on weekly. Okay, and you can spray it on the foliage as well. The fertilizer should be something that's balanced. I don't like too high a nitrogen, but let's say a 15, 15, 15 would be all right. A lot of trace elements would help because it adds to the flavor of the plant. The flavor is very important, and we have some basil over here on the side. I'm not sure that my wife can get those in the picture, but because the stand that we're using today is a little bit crickety and crackety. We couldn't find the other tripod that we usually use. It's much smoother. Down here we have marigolds planted that have been proven to repel insects. But let me tell you something about repelling insects. If you buy mosquito plants, and if you buy the lemongrass and so forth like that, and you think that they're going to repel insects, the fact is that it's the oil that repels the insects on those plants. So you have to crush them. So every time you go out in the yard, if you want those to be effective, take the citronella plant, take the lemongrass, crush it, and rub it on your skin. That's how it repels insects, not just from being there as a plant. The marigold, on the other hand, the blossom, the fragrance from the blossom is where the repelling qualities are. So the marigold does work at repelling insects. Now, why would I want to prune off the bottom of this tomato plant when it's growing so beautifully and so vigorously, and it has little tomatoes, green tomatoes on it? The reason is the splash. Now, we have decreased the splash substantially by putting straw down here underneath our tomato plants. That keeps any soil-borne diseases from being hit by rain or water, splashed up onto the foliage of the plant, and killing the bottom of our tomato plant. But it doesn't stop it entirely. We also have, underneath this plastic, we have more plastic. Or underneath this straw, we have plastic, which is it's recycled sheeting that we got from a greenhouse that was being torn down, and they were putting new sheeting on. This is clear plastic, so in the spring it heats up the ground, and then when we cover it, it works as holding in the moisture and directing the moisture to where we want it. We might want the water to go away from the plants, so we have a valley here in the middle, and the water runs into that valley, and the root structure of these plants can reach underneath here, which is moist, and get to this fertilizer and nutrients that are in the middle of the path. So the reason I'm pruning is for air circulation. Vitally important that you get air circulation around this tomato plant. Also important that we don't have any splash up of disease. And I want to make sure that I take these tomato plants, the stems that I cut off, and that I boil them in water and make a tea from them. This foliage is from the nightshade family. The tomato plant is a nightshade. It kills and repels insects. It is one of the better, and I also put in a bunch of the blossoms of the marigold into the mix, and then make a tea, and then spray that back onto all other plants. Now, nightshade is toxic. It is a poisonous plant, but the tomato, of course, is not. The fruit from it is not. But this works great as an insecticide. But more importantly, what I'm doing is I'm removing, we have some weeds down here too. Imagine that, in the garden doctor's yard, we have weeds. We're removing the bottom foliage and we're opening the plant up for air circulation. Sometimes that means sacrificing pretty good sized chunks. Now this chunk would make a fantastic start to put in you gotta take the blossoms off, take this off, scar it a little bit, stick it in the soil, a little root tone. Whoop, I got a blossom up here on the top too. A little root tone, and you have a tomato plant that's going to come on later. Now, I recommend you put these in a pot because right now it's July the 9th or 10th or 11th or 12th that we're doing this filming, and we're going to be running into the fall season, and you could get a frost. Cover this thing once in the fall and then bring it into the house for the last bit of fruit. Or, if you wish, just pull it up and hang it upside down in your garage with the foliage and everything on it and let it continue to ripen, and it will. You'll get that last bit of fruit that your neighbor won't get. You'll have tomatoes in your garden when everybody else has got their garden barren. This can be your last fruit of the season. Okay, so we're going to prune off all of this bottom foliage up to a point where I'm getting up into here. You see, this is some of the disease showing up right now on the bottom of these foliage, and I'm taking all of that off so that up to here there are no leaves. All of the foliage has been removed. Now, before I needed these leaves to produce the photosynthesis and put the energy back in the plant to produce the tomatoes, I don't want any of this stuff going to the inside because I'm trying to allow air circulation in there. Much the same as I would do on a on a tree in your yard, an apple tree or a shade tree or anything. I try to remove the inside of it to allow the air to circulate, and that's exactly what we're doing here. As I said, I want you to fertilize this plant. I want to take off all of the brown foliage, even if you have to remove some of the fruit. I want you to fertilize it every week with a balanced fertilizer. Use Blossom and Rot treatment, which is calcium, liquid calcium. If you've got yellowing in the foliage, use some liquid iron and feed it every week because you need production. It doesn't matter if you burn the plant, if you push it too hard, because now the plant has already determined what it's going to produce for fruit, and you're just going to stimulate, support that more and more and more. Don't overwater your tomato plants. Wait until they ask for water. This plant does not need water. If it did, the leaves would be curled up. Now, sometimes during the day when it's super hot, the leaves will curl up anyway because they're trying to protect themselves. But go out and check the moisture in the soil around your plant and make sure that it needs water. When it does need water, give it a lot of water. Overwater it even if you wish. Then leave it alone until it dries out. This will stimulate stronger, healthier growth. And one thing that you can do to reduce the stress of the plant is to give it a small amount of water in the morning. Just turn on a sprinkler for a very short period of time in the mornings, because you do it in the morning so it'll burn off and won't cause mold during the night. Put a small amount of water on the plant and the soil surrounding it. That acts as a cooling agent to keep your plants from getting way too hot. Now, these are tropical plants. These plants can stand the heat, and peppers love this heat, but not so much with cucumbers. Cucumbers, even though they are more tropical, they don't like to be hot all the time. And if you have any cabbage, broccoli, Brussels sprouts, cauliflower, any of that stuff still out in your garden, you got to provide some shade for it. So hopefully you've planted it on the north side of your bigger plants, such as the north side of your tomatoes. The north side of your corn is where I usually put mine. That provides a lot of shade. Even after I pick the corn, I leave the stalks to provide the shade, and sometimes even put a piece of burlap or a sheet up there that provides even a little bit more shade. So this is the time of the year to get out in your garden and get rid of anything that's not producing. Get rid of all of the plant too. Don't leave it laying around, because there could be diseases and insects on there that you don't want back in that soil. Make sure your compost bin is way away from your garden. Clean your garden out and get ready for the fall garden, because the fall garden can be one of the most fabulous gardens you will ever plant, especially if it's a hot summer. Because we go out of a hot summer, normally we have a little bit longer fall and we have a little warmer fall. So if you put your garden in from now through until the mid-August, as the planting instructions give you, you will have a result that's out of this world, and the diseases and the insects are far, far less as you go into the colder weather. Thank you very much for watching. We're going to send it back to the studio. You silly woman. Hello and welcome back. That was a long outtake, and I hope that you gathered some information there about your tomatoes or tomatoes.
And filming that, it was so hot out there. I saw a squirrel fanning his nuts.
Okay.
I did. I saw it with my own eyes. It was so hot.
I believe her. I believe her. As a matter of fact, she was a little delirious. So
this is true.
Okay.
We have air conditioning in the studio, but it's hot out there.
Well, actually, we don't, because they have to turn it off for the sound.
Well, but they get it nice and cool for us before we get here.
That's right. We keep it very nice up here. This studio is absolutely amazing. And if you want to see what the inside of the studio looks like, wait until there is another bluegrass.
Yes.
These bluegrass concerts, let me tell you what, you have never in your entire life been to a concert where there's only 25, 30 people.
Oh, it's intimate.
So intimate.
It is.
You're right there. The band appreciates your presence so much.
And you get to meet the musicians afterward. Everybody is having a good time, and it's cool inside.
And these people are professionals.
Oh,
they play all over the Midwest. They are. This is not just a thrown together band.
So the actual thing is called the Fayette County Line. Is that right?
I think so.
Okay, I don't have an earpiece today, but
the
Fayette County Line. And then our house band is called, help me.
I can't help
Okay,
you.
but then they have a guest, also extra band.
Yeah, there's two bands that play.
Right.
At every session that we've been to.
Now, this is usually advertised on the TV3 website and on the Facebook page, I believe.
Yes.
And it is open for you to come in and listen to the music and enjoy it and check out the studio.
Neat. And you can not only, that's my point.
Yes.
Not only can you come up to hear the band and hear some fantastic, wonderful bluegrass music, and you might think you're not a fan of bluegrass until you hear bluegrass.
Until your foot starts tapping.
Oh my goodness!
All by itself.
I've been a fan all this time.
That's right.
What's the famous one that everybody knows? The
Wes Miller Band.
Old brother.
Oh yes, the Soggy Bottom Boys from the movie, but then they were actually modeled after the Foggy something or other from way back when.
But what was the name of the song?
The Ballad of Jed Clampett?
Not the Ballad of
Well, we were talking about that the other day, the bluegrass band that sang the Beverly Hillbillies band. Man of Constant Sorrow.
Man of Constant Sorrow. Did you hear that in the background? Did you hear that? That was
Constant Sorrow.
Yeah. Actually, I used to sing that. Remember?
There was a couple of guys used to sing that at karaoke, and they were really good.
I had a certain voice section, and then Flip, he would sing it,
right.
And then we had two other people that would come in there, and we really did a pretty good job with that in karaoke. But my point was, and I tend to get off point a lot, but my point was that you can come up and see bluegrass, hear bluegrass, see these musicians personal, and you can also see this awesome studio. I have been in a number of studios. I've been in TV4. Now, I haven't been there for a while. I've been in Channel 6's. I was in Channel 13 studio for a while with Dr. Dirt. And I've seen the inside of studios. This rivals just about any studio I've been into.
Very nice.
It is very
Right
well
here,
done.
local.
And it's always changing. Always.
He really keeps up on new trends and new things and new sets. For instance, they have built, if you come and see the Bluegrass, there is a whole set that looks like an outdoor barn door with a porch kind of thing and a barrel, and that is their set behind where they play their music. And of course, our set it's actually a green curtain behind us, and we
Green
did this
screen.
before where we put the green curtain over us and we disappeared because that's how they put up the
Now this
beautiful.
is a little dingy, but a green screen for the garden doctor, just I don't know.
Well, you can't wear a green shirt because we'll disappear.
Can't wear a green shirt. Can't bring green plants.
No plants on they would disappear because we've wanted many times to show examples of
Can't
tomato
bring in
plants.
cucumbers, squash. Can't bring,
They'll disappear.
Maybe next year we'll be able to dye the screen fluorescent orange or something so that we can bring green stuff in.
All right, I want to talk about this.
Oh, wait a minute. You know
yeah.
what? Speaking about coming up to that concert, the last time I was here, I told Joe Gowacki that I would come out by his house and look at his tree that was in his backyard.
Did you forget?
No, I didn't. I went by.
Okay.
Nobody was there. I looked at the tree. Oh, there's a tree.
Nice tree. Okay.
I can take that tree down, Joe. So just let me heal a little bit this fall. I'll take the tree down for you. Don't worry about it. You've done enough for the community. We'll get that tree down for you. And I've got some help and some Boy Scouts, and we'll do it just for a project. So I haven't had a chance to tell you, but I'm telling you now, and somebody will tell you.
I'm telling you, it just has been so hot. You know, you realize that asphalt has a liquid state. You know, the streets are melting. And you find out also that a seatbelt makes a heck of a branding iron.
Oh my God! Yes, it do.
That's
yes, it
hot.
do. Yeah.
Now, do you want to talk some more about heat-related illness?
Yes, I want to know the what to look for in the symptoms, because I notice it in my people that are helping.
And you
my
said-
son
yes,
yesterday.
you said he
had
was-
evidence of heat stroke coming on. He was nauseated. He was a little bit dizzy. And he was bending over, and I doused him in water right quick. I just happened to have a nurse there because we were out at a nurse's house helping.
Okay,
and
perfect.
so she ran and got him some water and decided she was going to do the digging and the planting instead of him because he had been working in the heat all day.
Now, those are some of the classic symptoms. Headache, or nausea, weakness, dizziness, fainting, and muscle cramps, and particularly muscle cramps in your abdomen, arms, and legs.
Yes.
And you can literally have muscle spasms from having heat stroke. There's several heat-related illness. It can be hyperthermia, it can be heat stroke, heat exhaustion, heat cramps, heat rash. There are several different varieties of a heat-related illness. Okay.
Now, this is nothing to fool around with,
no,
folks. If
it can be a coma. One of the symptoms is
if you think
coma.
somebody is suffering a heat stroke, call 911. Don't mess around. Get them in the shade. Get them some wet. I water down a blanket and throw it on them, or a sheet or something. I always carry one in the vehicle.
Now, again, people who are at greater risk of suffering from a heat-related illness are infants and children up to 4 years of age. They can't really be in control of what they should be wearing, drinking, standing in the shade, what have you. People 65 years of age and older, as we discussed.
And you're talking about infants. Everybody has done some bad things in the past. One of the things that we've all done that we're smokers is put our children in the back seat, and then everybody in the front seat smoking, even somebody sitting in the back seat. I can remember a time when there was 4 people in my car smoking, and I had my baby in an infant's chair, and I would not even consider doing that today,
No,
because
not even
I
in
know
their presence.
that the toxin, the poison. But beyond that, my mother took us to the ocean, and my sister and I had never been to the ocean
Again, you weren't acclimated to the sunlight.
or to the salt water.
Now, here's an interesting fact I found looking up, is what state would you imagine has the greatest number of new melanoma or skin cancer cases? What
Florida,
state? You would think.
Georgia, Mississippi, maybe Louisiana.
Would you believe
How about Hawaii?
Utah, Vermont, and I'm going in order here, the highest amount of new melanoma cases.
Utah.
Utah, then Vermont,
I'm trying to think of. I know Utah's
way
up
and
in
out.
the boonies and out there, but
Minnesota, which you think
Minnesota.
of, yes, and New Hampshire. And the reason they believe this is the case, first of all, it's not on the radar, skin cancer. It's not, living in Vermont is not an area where your doctors and healthcare professionals would, push the idea of skin cancer and skin protection and wearing sunscreen, for one. Two, they're probably not as much looking for that when it, comes to your doctor, because it's just, you wouldn't think of it as being that big a deal there. And then, of course, it's because people are not used to being out in the sun all the time.
Yeah.
So then when it's a sunny day and they decide, I'm going to go outside and do something,
I can see
then
that.
they get burnt. Okay, whereas if you already have a base tan, you've been in the sun, you're not going to
Sure.
get fried and burnt, which repeated burns can lead to melanoma. So I found that absolutely fascinating.
Yeah, I would have thought it would have been Florida, though, because so many older people down there, and they're so susceptible.
Florida is not even in the
It's
top
not even on the
15.
radar. Yeah, that's quite amazing. Back to my sister and I, we went out and played at the beach all day. And I mean, we were there all day.
Ridiculous.
Like 14, 16 hours.
Never been to the ocean before.
Never been to the ocean. And we were having a ball. And that night, my sister started looking really, really bad.
You don't know you're burnt at the beach in the daylight till it's too late. I mean, I used to sit on the beach and watch people, tourists walking down the beach, and I would think to myself, or say out loud even, they are totally burnt and fried and don't even know it yet. They don't even know it yet.
We were lobsters.
They were purple.
Red, purple, and we were
poisoned.
Sick.
You were poisoned.
And by 9 o'clock that night, we had gotten a bathtub with ice dumped into it, and that just wasn't helping, and we went to the hospital. And the amazing thing, and I'm pretty sure this is true, this is correct, is that they gave us raw Coke syrup. Now, I don't know, that may not be the practice now.
I don't really know why that.
I don't know. I
don't
have
know
no idea.
Maybe it's the caffeine to open your capillaries.
I don't know. I don't have. But they put us in an aloe vera bath, and they left us in there, and that was soothing. But oh my God, I was so sick, and my sister was worse. She was really bad sick.
Well, I feel bad because I didn't know this 38 years ago, but my son, as an infant, Swedish father, extremely white skin,
As white
like
as
this paper.
right here, yeah.
And every time you are sunburnt as a child increases the likelihood of you getting skin cancer as an adult. I spent a lot of time on the beach with my olive skin. I brought him with me. He was always lathered up in sunscreen. However, he got burnt many times. And, even I was burnt many times as a kid. You don't realize every time you get burnt, you increase your chances of getting skin cancer later in life. My son, at the age of 25, had skin cancer removed from already.
And you have already had...
I already have. Now my son at 38 is wise enough when he goes out, he wears a hat.
God, yeah.
He wears a shirt, his socks with his sandals, and if he's at the beach, he has a sheet where he makes
He
a
looks
tent.
like a little old man, all wrapped up.
He protects his skin. I'm proud of him for that.
Now, again, this is the Garden Doctor Show.
Yes.
And we are talking about gardening, but everything that we do in the garden is done outside. And you have to do this understanding that things are getting hot out there, and they're going to get hotter. You have to protect yourself, and you have to be aware of these circumstances and situations.
Now, other people who are also more susceptible to getting heat-related illness are people who are overweight, because they tend to retain a higher body temperature. People who work outside, we already know that. And people who are chronically ill on certain medications, we know that. And there are a lot of symptoms, like for a heat rash, you may be getting red bumps. You may start feeling dizzy or lightheaded. You may start having cramps, significant sweating and spasms of your muscles, nausea, vomiting, headache, feeling weak. All these things are symptoms of some type of heat-related illness. And what is the treatment? First thing, get somebody to a cool indoor environment or outdoor in the shade environment and loosen any restrictive clothing. You need to allow circulation. That's part of the problem of being able to cool yourself when you're
Most
older
definitely,
is
yeah.
circulation.
Yeah. And that's one of the reasons why the people in the desert wear long sheets, flowing clothes that are not restrictive
They're
at all.
shading themselves.
They're shading and giving layers.
Yes.
And you know, one of the shirts that I wear, these new shirts that are for fishing and so forth, specifically designed for that.
70 UV protection built into the shirt.
I've got that built into the shirt, but it also is cooling because the sweat goes into the shirt and then it allows the airflow and it cools my body temperature down.
Evaporates.
And these shirts really work.
They really
are.
are.
They really do.
Now, it also says to cool this person, if they show signs, cool them rapidly using whatever method you can, like you hosed off your son, cool him down.
I
Put them
take
in a
ice
tub.
water, I put my sheet down the ice water and put it over the
And
people.
it doesn't even have to be ice water. It can be a cool shower in
Mm-hmm.
a cool bathtub, a wet sheet somehow to
That's
cool
what I
them
use,
down.
one of the things,
and
yeah.
also ice pit packs. If you apply them to the armpit, the neck and groin areas where you can retain a lot of heat, that can cool your body quite efficiently.
Yes, it can.
And
You dump ice down your shorts.
And now
Cool you right off.
Their first suggestion is if you have these symptoms, before you even start these issues, is to get help. Call 911.
Because you may not be able to call help later on. I have passed out on 3 different occasions from heat-related situations where I just thought I was bigger, badder, and I could handle this. One of them was when I was scouting. And we were scouting on Brookville Lake, deer hunting, and my buddy and I had split up, and it was miserably, unbearably hot. And he had taken one route, and I had taken another, and we were kind of trying to outdo each other.
Imagine that.
Yeah, and I got really, really hot. I was running across the field and going to cut him off and sneak up behind him and scare him. I did this all the time.
Great.
One time I waited for almost 6 months to get him in an exact position so that I knew I could chase the deer across and right over the top of him.
Oh, my.
And I did. And that was so much. It knocked his hat off. The first one went across and he jumped up, and the second one didn't realize he was going to get up and knock his hat off, knocked him down. So it was quite fun.
Fun.
But I passed out. And he found me passed out, and he thought I was taking a nap because we take naps in the woods all the time. A good power nap in the woods is nothing better than it.
But you can have organ failure, brain damage. I mean,
I was disoriented. I was a mess.
This is serious business.
Yep.
And right now, being a gardening show, everybody wants to be outdoors doing their gardening and everything. And you can still do it, even in this heat. But drink. Rest, shade,
and
wear a hat.
don't drink sugar drinks. Don't drink caffeine drinks. We're talking
sports
about
drinks?
water or sports drinks
If you're
that
sweating
say
a lot.
low cal.
Yes, if you have sugar issues or like in your case with your heart and issues, you don't want to drink a regular sports drink because of the sodium. You can't have that much sodium.
Exactly, and you're getting a lot of potassium that you don't know about, and you're getting a lot of sugars, and you're getting, just look at the label and be very conscious of what the heck is in there.
For somebody who doesn't have your issues, let's say, sports drinks are a great thing. They replace the
But you
potassium.
still don't want too much of that.
No, they replace what you're sweating out, though,
Yeah.
and they can be quite helpful. And they
Yes.
also suggest after a workout to go in and eat a banana, replace some of that
Yes,
potassium.
yeah.
Now, again, if you are on medications, have heart issues, whatever, you have to watch that sodium,
careful with it,
potassium
yeah.
business, you know. But yes, if the person affected is awake and alert, have them drink. They need to be drinking water.
They also make hydration vests.
That's amazing.
Where you just have a spigot that comes around here, and those keep the water ice cold. They do a very good job. It's just a hydration vest, and then they do make vests that you put in ice water and you put on, and you know we have to adapt and we have to become more and more accustomed to this environment that we are in, and realize that it's man-made. Don't give me this cycling business and all of this nonsense. Perhaps the earth was warming anyway. Perhaps we were going into this warming cycle, but man's ignorance and man's ignoring our effect on the environment has accelerated it.
Arrogance, if I might add. Thinking we can do anything. And
we have stepped on it, and we've kicked the can down so far that there's going to be a problem. Now, it could be that we have a horrible winter, that there's snow 15, 20 foot deep. That's global warming.
People say, well, it's so cold and we had such a freezing winter. How can there be global warming? It's part of the entire cycle.
It's part of the cycle. Yeah.
Right.
Where the jet stream is coming from, if you will watch, I'm into weather. I
Always has
really
been.
love weather, and I have been very good at predicting weather. But where the jet stream is coming from, how it's coming out of the Gulf of Alaska, how things are moving differently in the oceans, all has an effect on our weather, a major effect. It has, one of the biggest effects is how long things linger. When we have a heat wave, it doesn't just come and go. It comes and stays. When we have a storm, it doesn't just blow through. It comes and stays. When we have these big rain sessions, they're big rain in the last 3, 4, 5 days. And if we don't have any rain, that lasts for 3, 4, 5, 2 weeks. So we're going to have to get used to a changing environment, not just...
It's extremes in every form of weather.
Yeah, not just
really.
our bodies, but our gardens, our gardening practices. And
your frost dates change constantly. The zones you're in for plants change constantly.
I feel so bad. A couple of weeks ago, we had I forget when it was, we had a lady call in about that garden that was all full of poison ivy. Okay, when people try gardening, they really should try it with some supervision. And if you're going to provide people garden to garden in, or a space to garden, do a little planning, do your due diligence and provide them with a high quality piece of ground to start with. Because
kill out everything that's there first.
For crying out loud, at the minimum do that. And then give them some instruction and direction and support during this time of the very first garden, because if you don't, you're going to lose them as a gardener.
Well, I think, plus you have people who say, oh, well, this is a great idea. Let's do a community garden. And I agree. Let's do that. And maybe they don't have the resources to provide that support or the knowledge to kill out everything on that ground. They're doing a great thing, but they just maybe don't have the backup and support to do the follow-through that you're talking about.
And I will promise you that there is no community in the United States, none, zero, including this one, where if you asked for gardening help, for gardening mentors to show up and help new gardeners, you would have to turn people away. I am not at all kidding or exaggerating. Mm-hmm. And what really irks me is when a community such as Connorsville or any community really involves itself in something to do with landscaping or planting or shrubs or trees or anything for the community, and doesn't ask the community of experts that live right here to get involved, to use their expertise and knowledge. The amount of knowledge and expertise that is in Connorsville, Indiana.
And you're one of those people.
I'm one of them, but there are people in this town that are far more knowledgeable than I am. There are plantsmen and so forth around here that have studied. It's not as important to me to know every plant. Okay, what's important to me is the accumulative knowledge of what goes on in Connorsville, in this environment that I've chose to live in, and in New Hampshire. I want to know this plant, but I want to know everything about it. I want to know where it will grow, where it won't grow, what side of the house, the wind and everything. Right. But what they want to know is they want to be able to take a twig and identify every plant. And that takes some study, and that takes some singular focus and some education and time that it's not that important to me.
Well, and for instance, we have in this town the gardening club. And I think the gardening club should be less about admiring each other's members' successes and more about inspiring new gardeners.
Which I think they are trying.
And helping new gardeners.
And let me tell you.
Because we know they're great, and their yards are great, and their flowers are
Oh,
great,
yeah.
and they can do everything. But what can
And
they
I'd like
share?
to do more showing off of their gardens too,
Yes.
to give them a little bit more. We really want to do more out there, but we're having some issues with our equipment, getting comfortable with it, so that we can go out there and make sure. Because I don't want to go out there and do a poor take or something like that. So we're doing some
Yeah,
practicing.
we're not experts at this. We do
Well,
our best.
I
and-
used to be darn good at photography. I used to be extremely good at videoing, but I had a piece of equipment, and that piece of
you
equipment,
knew
I
your
knew
equipment,
it
right, inside
backwards
and out.
and forward, upside and down, and
Yes.
I could make it do things to the outside perimeters, and that's what I need to do with
And
the
that was a
equipment that we've got.
priority for you, and that you were very interested in doing that. And nowadays,
And it's not because we got bad equipment, because
No,
the studio has provided
they provide
us
us wonderful equipment to loan,
really,
to borrow,
really
and
good
use.
equipment. And
Yes.
so we just need to utilize that more and do some filming of some gardens out there. Okay.
One more thing I wanted to mention is when you talked about your son the other day out on the job
This
site.
is a young, strapping man
30
now.
years old. One of the things that you need to do is lie them down and put their feet up. And the
Yes.
reason being is because when your body's trying to cool itself, all the blood rushes to the skin and away from the organs trying to cool itself. That's why it can cause organ failure, because the blood is not going to your organs and your brain. And as you know, with low blood pressure, if you have a spell of that, lay down, put your feet up. That way gravity will bring blood to your brain and at least keep that going while you're having this heat exhaustion issue.
And it's very important
So,
to have blood to your brain.
Lay down,
because
put your feet up. If you've experienced fainting, nausea while you're cooling, laying down, resting in the shade, what have you, put your feet up.
Bill Bunyard, a very good friend of mine, and he ran for, if anybody knew Bill Bunyard and had the opportunity to get him to pitch his campaign to you, and you took the time, by the time Bill got out the fact that he was running for election, the election would be mostly over.
I remember him, yeah.
Bill was a super guy. He was very honest,
His
very
wife,
sincere.
sweet little lady.
But one day I came home and Bill was out in the field driving around in circles. And come to find out, he was suffering from a heat stroke.
Oh, my.
And I
Confusion
kept looking
is a
because
symptom, yes.
going around in circles is something that farmers do
Well, I
on
guess if you're
occasion.
looking at something and you need a good 360
But
view.
when he made the third trip and it was the same exact tire
Oh,
tracks,
wow.
and I could see that there was something wrong, I went out there.
Something's wrong.
And 2 days later, Bob Fleming was out, and he was going across the field, and he went right out through a cornfield that was 3 foot high corn, and he was bush hogging, and I knew that was wrong. Now I had to go catch up with a tractor
Oh, no.
that is being driven by a man that is delirious, that has a bush hog on the back,
That's dangerous.
jump onto it and convince this guy who
Who's
is
confused and stubborn and
confused,
bullheaded.
stubborn, and exactly, and can get mean. I thought I was going to have to knock him out to
Oh,
get
my.
him to understand
To stop the machine.
Something's not
Right.
right. Well, it happened to be that his blood sugar was 400.
Right, he had big
And,
diabetes
and
issues.
he was suffering from sunstroke at the same time, and this could have got serious because there's a 15-foot drop off coming
Right.
up right past there where he was going through the field.
Well, it's lucky
but
you were there.
this stuff can kill you. So when you're out there, be safe. Use some common sense.
Be
Wear a
it
big hat.
mowing.
Wear a big hat. Did you
Oh,
see this new big hat
There's
business?
a new trend. They're like as big as an umbrella. They're on the runway and everything. I want one.
Completely,
That's what I need.
This is insane.
I
but,
like it.
You know, I would like to have a bigger
He
hat
wants
than what
one,
I have.
too.
I want one. Yes, I want one.
That's
No,
cool.
but they're sold out though. I can't have one. Now $400 for this.
Oh, that's on the runway, the ridiculous designer
$400.
business. So no, but
But I want a hat. You know the hat that used to have the eyes in it where you could see out?
I think it's called a ghost costume.
No. You wore a hat that had eyes in it. The whole hat come down.
I think it's called a beekeeper suit.
It could be.
Okay.
That I would like too.
Okay.
Like a beekeeper suit. But
Is
anyway.
that what you're going to be for Halloween, a beekeeper?
I might be the garden
Do you
doctor
know
for
how
Halloween.
you know how a bee keeps cool in the summer? He takes off his yellow jacket. That's right.
God.
It keeps him cool. That's right. You like that, huh?
Yeah, I like that very much.
I actually have a real dad joke.
What do we got left?
A couple of minutes, but one joke my father sent me. I always talk about dad jokes, and I love my dad, 81 years old, and he's just an awesome man, but he sends me jokes on the internet. And being that it's 4th of Independence Day is behind us and everything, but how come there's no knock-knock joke about America?
I don't know. Why isn't there?
Because freedom rings. Thanks, Dad.
Thanks, Dad. That's
Tribute to Dad right
Yes,
there.
yes,
Okay, it was literally a dad joke.
Yeah, and I'm gonna probably be doing some serious sawdust making with Father.
Well,
here.
you're going to do some serious editing my material before we do another show.
No, you know
after
what?
this.
There's no hope because I never know, and I like that. You know, it's a in the next show we ought to try to do that whisper thing.
We'll talk about that.
Yeah, because that was quite interesting, the
all
Whisper
right.
Challenge. And I want to get more into this tree, knowing exactly how much one tree can make a difference in the health and the environment of a
Community of life.
Yeah. One tree, one single solitary tree. So, anyway, we've had a very good show. We've enjoyed coming to you, and we hope
always.
that you will turn us on the next time that we are on the air. And I don't even remember what the date is, but
Doesn't matter.
I'm sure you can figure
It'll
it out.
still be hot next time, I'm sure.
And thank you very much for joining us on the Garden Doctor Show. Mr. and Mrs. Garden Doctor, we want to tell you how much we've loved to bring you this show. And if you have any comments, bring it to us. Thank you very much for watching. See you next time.
The Garden Doctor.